What's up, everybody? Pogchamps 2 is continuing today with dogdog taking on against Zexro, and dogdog starts with the white pieces in the first match. Of course, there are two games in each match, and if both players win one, or in the case of two draws in a row, then there will be a tiebreaker game in the end. Now, notice that both players went for a more passive setup, which is usually rare. If white goes passive, usually black tries to take advantage of that and goes more aggressive. But in this case, both players went more passive. But it is kind of clear that white has this advantage of pawns here, and white has a more pleasant position currently right now. And white tries to push this bishop out, failing to realize that this pawn here is now unsupported. Usually, if there's a pawn here, then it's completely fine, like what we saw here, where this piece was supported. But here, it's not supported by a pawn, so two minor pieces can easily take this pawn, and obviously now dogdog is already in less material with this pawn. But it's very nice that he found this diagonal, because if instead, let's say he takes here, we'll notice that he missed this tension that now opened up between the bishops. So Zexro can now maybe take the bishop and have even more of an advantage. So even though he's down 1 point, that doesn't really mean much, and dogdog played quite well. The game continues, and I really like this move, offering a trade of queens in this very hard position to play for both players, because it's just very confusing. There's a lot of pieces. For example, this pawn here is very, it's being attacked a lot. So I like that he's trying to simplify. He's also have obviously more material. Now this move by dogdog, it seems fine, attacking a queen, but it's actually very, very bad. The idea with this move is obviously to attack the queen, but the problem is that the queen, now looks at where it can go, and it'll notice, oh, I can go here and do this fork. So this move, I like to think about it as motivating your opponent to do a good move. So I would not recommend doing that in a game, and already dogdog has just a huge material disadvantage. But again, it doesn't really mean that the game is over, because we are playing in a lower level game. Now here, Zexro plays this move rather than playing a very nice fork in the king and the rook, probably because he's very focused on this tension with the pawns here, so he misses this fork, but that's fine because he's up in material. The move f5 here seems like it's just pretty bad. It seems like you're just blundering a pawn, but the idea is to then support e4, and now this is just very crushing, because there's nothing you can do. You're going to lose material. You're going to even lose more material. Notice that now, if you take this rook instead of taking the pawn, then now this pawn is going to be able to promote. So you have to take the pawn. You have to, just in the end, it's just a horrible position right now for white. And black manages to just come in the bottom rank and swoop all of the material in. But that being said, the game's not over, because a lot of times in beginner gameplay, you'll notice that stalemate is very much possible. And here, this pawn can't go forward, this pawn can't, this pawn can't, this pawn can't. This knight is the only piece, because the king also can't. So if the knight were to move, sacrifice itself, and then play a move like this, notice that now white has an opportunity for stalemate. But instead the knight takes this square, which is a horrible move, because once the king takes, now the king also has a square. So stalemate is just very, it's not as easy to do a stalemate here. And in the end, black is just going to get a fairly easy checkmate, and we move on to game 2. So Zexro starts with the white pieces in this game and does the London system, and black fails to really, fight the London system. With the London system, you really want to get in c5 and take away this really solid d4 pawn here. And black just doesn't do this and lands in a really passive position. That being said, black finds a really nice idea, which is moving e8 with the queen, preparing e5. And the idea with e5 is that you're going to win a piece. It doesn't look like it, but the point is, after take, if the bishop moves back, you have this very nice fork. So you're going to win a piece. The bishop just takes in the end. And already dogdog, seems to have a very good advantage. But that doesn't really mean much in beginner gameplay. The knight is hit, so the knight moves back. It's all very intuitive moves. Maybe trying to get a rook lift here. Very, very nice. And notice that this is a very tricky move that Zexro made, because the queen seems like this is a very safe spot, but the problem is this very nice fork, which actually ended up happening in the game. But black has a really nice way to fight this fork, rather than just giving a free rook, taking this piece, because you are still hitting the queen. So if take, well, now you're hitting the queen, obviously. And if the queen takes, which I believe is what happened in the game, well, now there's this very nice idea, not losing the rook because of this pin, and I guess in a way forcing a queen trade, because if the queen doesn't take it, you can obviously take it next time. But here, there's just a huge blunder that happened, moving the rook here, forgetting that the queen is here indeed, and now that black can just take a free queen, and dogdog seems to have a huge advantage here. Already up so much material. And the thing that you have to remember is that in the case of a draw, it's not, the person who starts with the white pieces, or the person who gets to choose, is the person who played the best in both games according to the engine. So here, although it looks like black has a clear win, which black does, it really matters how fast black, finds that win. So for example, if black were to sacrifice a queen for a rook, which generally is a smart thing because you're up so much material, well, not right now, but let's say the knights get taken off as well, you're probably going to win the game, but the engine obviously won't like that because the queen is way better. So in this case, it becomes very tricky to try to play the best moves, even though you obviously are going to win the game. So, for example, here, dogdog offers a trade, and obviously the engine hates this move because it's like, what the hell are you doing? You're going to lose material. But obviously, as a human, you realize that you're just going to win the game regardless. So it is a good move as a human, but the engine won't like it. But regardless, dogdog obviously manages to win this game after Zexro decides to sacrifice a lot of pieces, and we move on to a tiebreaker. Now, dogdog had a better percentage, even with that queen sacrifice that he tried to do, and he chose to start with white. That means, though, that he has 5 minutes. Zexro has 4 minutes, so it seems very good to start with white, but in the case of a draw, Zexro wins. So that's the huge drawback for deciding to start with white. But dogdog decided to start it because there hasn't been too many draws in Pogchamps at all. Usually one person blunders a lot and then the other person just gets an easy win. That's usually what ends up happening. Now here, this pawn is hanging, but dogdog doesn't see it, obviously under a lot of time pressure, both players. So this isn't going to be the best game by any means. But, in the end of the day, you still have to find this hanging piece, especially when you had more opportunities as well after that first initial time where you could have taken the piece. And the game continues like this. There isn't much to say. It's just a huge kind of time scramble of who can get the moves out faster without blundering a huge piece. And both players just, miss pawns, so white gets a pawn here, black gets a pawn here after moving the piece. So both players are just losing a ton of pawns. But that's what you see more generally in these quicker games. Now here, the knight jumps here. It's a very tricky move because you are hitting the bishop, but you're also hitting this rook. And here, dogdog just gets a free piece. But the game is not over at all because he blunders actually in the end. At this point right now, after the bishop falls, he doesn't take back and instead plays the move bishop, targeting this rook here. And he blunders more pieces. And you can already tell kind of the horrible position that dogdog is in. At this point, the time advantage doesn't even matter because he's already lost all the time advantage he has. The time is basically equal. And so from here is just, more of a time scramble. Who can get the pieces out quicker? But in the end of the day, there's not much that dogdog can do. It's just a very hard position. And at this point, he runs out of time. So in the end, Zexro gets the win in a very, very tough 3-game series. But that's the end result. Make sure you subscribe if you want more of these Pogchamp videos coming out every single day that there is Pogchamps. And make sure you stay updated by, once again, subscribing. And peace out.